Hey everyone, welcome back to AFTV in the final episode in this 5-part series in focus, and it is Granit Xhaka. And the question I want to ask is, was he always this good? I mean, genuinely, was he always this good? That's the question. And what does that mean? I guess I mean, was he always playing this well and we didn't appreciate it till now? Was he always a player of this level? And because let's not rewrite history, okay? While a lot of fans have defended Xhaka passionately, and I've been in those debates because I've been more of a critic of the player, there are a lot of people who've said that, he was always fantastic and that we were misunderstanding him. And there are other people who say, no, this has improved dramatically, and you could probably thank Arteta a lot for that. But Granit Xhaka deserves immense credit. And I want to touch on a lot of things, from his journey at Arsenal to where he is now, to his new role, to some of the things he said and kind of where it's left us with the player. But also, has he always been this good? That's ultimately the question I want to try and answer today, while looking at kind of his journey and trying to understand why, even if he wasn't, why that might have been the case. So quite a lot to get into in the next 10-15 minutes or so. But let's start by actually looking at his journey and that signing in the summer of 2016. And it was a funny one, because Arsenal were for a long time lacking that robust central midfielder that could do a little bit of everything. That could be, yes, good on the ball, but a powerful runner as well. That was defensively quite robust, dependable. That would give us a little bit of presence. I think the one thing is that Xhaka's never been one to shy away from a tackle, and he's certainly been one to get involved, to stick up for his teammates and be the aggressor if he has to be. And I mean that in a footballing way. So that isn't something that's recently come, but did he always use it in the right way? I mean, that we saw, I think, from very early on, we'd see certain disciplinary issues or from a footballing perspective. But what we got from Granit Xhaka was a very different player, at least in those early years. And what I mean by that is we sometimes saw him being used as one of two defensive midfielders alongside Francis Coquelin, for example. We saw him starting with Santi Cazorla, and he would be the deepest six, with Cazorla and Ozil kind of buzzing either side of him. He has had Ramsey in midfield with him. We saw him win the FA Cup that year in his first full season in a 3-4-3 with Ramsey alongside him. Wilshere was there at one point. Lucas Torreira then arrived, and Matteo Guendouzi as well. He's had so many partners until very recently, where he's had kind of 2-3 consistent seasons of Thomas Partey alongside him. I mentioned that FA Cup final in 2017. I think he was brilliant in that game, and I think that often gets overlooked. I think when people look back at his start to his Arsenal career, they maybe talk about how things have gone brilliantly recently, but there were flashes of it. There were big performances, and that FA Cup final in 2017 was a big one. I think that was a really, really big performance where he, I think, showed that he could step up on the big stage and deliver a trophy, and he was big in that game. Ramsey got the goal. I think the story of Per Mertesacker returning to the team, with holding the youngster Nacho Monreal, who wasn't a left back either side of him, I think was mainly the talking point of that day. But don't forget how brilliant Granit Xhaka was in that final. I mentioned earlier the disciplinary issues. I think 6 red cards in all competitions he's had since he's been with Arsenal, and 6 penalties he's conceded in the league. These are the kind of things that were frustrating fans, that even when he was playing pretty well, there would always be these kind of moments in him, and he was getting big criticism from pundits as well. Gary Neville, who was it? Maybe it wasn't Gary Neville, but it was a pundit, I think, who was criticising his inability to track back for a goal we conceded at Old Trafford before. And it felt like all eyes were on Granit Xhaka, and people were starting to go into this narrative of, we're just never going to be the kind of team we need to be with Granit Xhaka in midfield. It sounds harsh, it sounds horrible looking back on it, but that is a lot of the stuff that was being said. Now, as I mentioned, for anyone watching this going, hold on, I wasn't saying that. No, there were absolutely a lot of people defending him. No one more so than the actual managers who were picking him. And that's a big thing that we forget. Arsene Wenger signed him, played him every week. Unai Emery gave him the captaincy, played him every week. Mikel Arteta came in, determined to keep him and make him stay, and has worn the armband under him, and has been a player that, when fit, has started every single week. And there's maybe something we didn't acknowledge or appreciate quite as much at the time as it was happening. I mentioned that captaincy. It was voted by the players. Unai Emery made him the captain after the players voted for him to be the captain. And things went very, very wrong at that Crystal Palace game. Now, we all remember it, the 2-2. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but I've got some interesting quotes from him in terms of what he had to say about it. But in that Crystal Palace game, Arsenal were... let me just say how I remember it, and then I'll read his quote. The way I remember it was we were 2-0 up, pulled back to 2-2. I don't think he was great on one of the goals, if I'm honest. But he was subbed off. Now, why something sometimes gets forgotten is that he was subbed off against Villa a couple of weeks before. And from what I remember, because I was actually at that Villa game, the response from the fans, or some fans should I say, wasn't too dissimilar. And from what I remember, I think it was caused by, a sort of a slightly cumbersome, if that's a word, kind of walk off the pitch from Xhaka. Maybe like he looked disappointed to come off. But listen, I don't know that. That's just how it appeared to me at the time. And I think the Palace thing might have been a similar thing. And because of the Villa one, I think I remember the Palace one feeling like extra frustration from the couple of weeks before. We ended up beating Villa, but Palace, we couldn't turn it around, although we were denied a really, really stupid goal, and that was VAR at his best, wasn't it? But that was a dark moment for him. He remembers it by saying this. In an interview with the Players' Tribune, where he very much spoke about a lot of things, this was one of the things he had to say. To be booed by your own fans, as captain, that is different. That is about respect. This word has always been huge for me, ever since I was a kid. It's something I got from my mother. Respect for your parents, respect for your club, your teammates, your fans. Was I wrong to do what I did? Yes. But would I do anything differently if it happened again tomorrow? Honestly, I don't know. I have to be honest about that. I'm an emotional guy. To feel that level of hatred and disrespect, I wouldn't want it for my worst enemy. Still to this day, if we have lost, I hate walking those last meters to the tunnel because I still recognise the faces. The same people are sitting there. So now I just keep my head down. I lived through that nightmare once. I don't ever want to do it again. Now that must have been an incredibly hard time for Granit Xhaka. And listen, did he do everything right? He said himself. He thinks he made mistakes, maybe. Would he do anything differently? I respect his honesty, that maybe not. Maybe he can't deal with that situation any differently. I think that kind of honesty and what we saw in the documentary, All or Nothing, I think helped us really understand Granit Xhaka a little bit more. And I think a lot of the interviews and the way he's spoken recently has helped Arsenal fans understand him a little bit more. But there's also been a footballing element that I think has really changed the way Granit Xhaka is viewed. Because let's not forget, after that, there was an FA Cup final where he was brilliant. Mikel Arteta came in and started to turn his fortunes around. But then there was the Roma stuff. This quote, Arsenal know what I want to do. It is very beautiful here. And of course he was talking about Rome. Rome were very close to signing him, but it didn't happen. We ended up keeping him, and I think the way he's playing this season, we can all say that was absolutely a blessing for us. Now, Granit Xhaka, when I mention all that stuff, I'm not trying to dig up old stuff. I'm trying to give immense credit to the turnaround. And I'm trying to look back at why that was. Because with all this stuff, you've got to wonder, how did he not walk away? How has this relationship been repaired, if not almost fully repaired? Because look at the way the Arsenal fans are singing his name. Look how we feel when he comes off against Wolves because he's not feeling well, and we wonder how the game's going to go without him. These things are massive indication as to how much things have changed for Granit Xhaka. Well, I think a big part has been the new role, because when you're trying to analyse, was he always this good? Did we just not appreciate him, and all this other stuff was just because of the players around him, the partners he had in midfield, the manager and the way he was deployed, the fact that Arsenal weren't a good team? All these things could have been a part of why Granit Xhaka wasn't playing, in my opinion, to the level that we're seeing now. Or maybe he was, and if you do think he was, you let us know in the comment section. Let's just take it to the tactical pad. Now, we look at the starting 11, which predominantly been Mikel Arteta's favoured starting 11 in the Premier League this season. What we've seen is it turning into a 3-2-5. Mentioned it in the Zinchenko video in the last In Focus series, where we analysed how his role in that midfield was crucial to freeing up players like Granit Xhaka. He's been getting goals. He's been, his creative numbers have gone up, and we've seen a lot of this. Martinelli on the ball with the underlap to Granit Xhaka, touches in the box, touches in the penalty area, getting forward, being creative, being influential in the final third. Now, we've seen this in a lot of ways. Let's start by looking at Tottenham Hotspur. So this is the home game where we beat them 3-1 last season. He was playing in more of a deeper role. He was playing a little bit closer to Thomas Partey. He was covering in those left-back areas when Kieran Tierney was bombing on. And you see these in the touches he had on the pitch in the 3-1 win against Tottenham last season. Kind of quite central, a little deeper. Yes, coming up to the left occasionally, but I guess we'd expect a left central midfielder to pick up the ball, especially when he's playing in a double pivot alongside Thomas Partey. When you look at this one, Again, look how much higher up the pitch. Hardly any touches in his own half. Far more on the right, because they're shooting from left to right here in this graphic. Far more, high up on the left, in and around the penalty area, in areas which is more we'd expect an advanced 8 on the left of a midfield 3, getting forward, shots on goal as well. He got a goal in that game. And that is an illustration of how, from last season, his role in that game, in that derby, has changed from one to the other. Is it a coincidence? Absolutely not. Let's have a look at Liverpool. We lost this game 2-0 at home to Liverpool. But again, look at the touches. I think you'd say it's pretty even in both halves. Not too near the penalty area. A couple, certainly none, down that kind of attacking left wing. But when we look at this, again, far more in the attacking half, far more in and around Liverpool's penalty area. But look how many in the box there. What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 touches and shots on goal as well. Granit Xhaka getting into much more advanced area, still doing his defensive duties. Of course, he always does. He never shies away from that, but enjoying a lot more of the ball up the pitch. Now let's have a little look at Granit Xhaka in the 4-2 win at Stamford Bridge last season. This time it's from right to left. So on the left side is the attacking half. But again, we see him sort of a little bit all over the pitch, a lot of defensive work to do, but still, few touches in those kind of central areas. But again, let me just properly illustrate it. Let me show you here. None really in that kind of area around the penalty area that you'd expect. It's kind of all central midfield, almost in those areas where it's like, let me give it to the front 3, front 4, the more attacking players to do their stuff. But when you compare it now to this season's win at the Bridge, again, far more down that left wing channel, in that attacking third, in around the penalty area, in the penalty box as well. Guys, none of this is a coincidence. Granit Xhaka's role has changed enormously. And so the impact he's having, not just in the games we expect us to have a lot of the ball, like Brentford, where he had, got the assist and was getting forward a lot, like Leicester at home, like Fulham at home or whatever. This is in games against big sides, big derbies, away from home as well against the big 6. Here he is getting really high up the pitch, having a lot of the touches in attacking areas and demonstrating how his role has evolved enormously. And again, the introduction of a player like Zinchenko would have helped. Mikel Arteta's coaching, the system would have helped. But Granit Xhaka, I think, is having a confidence as well to go and express himself in these areas. And it's absolutely fantastic to see. And it's making a massive, massive difference. Now, we're seeing this when we compare his numbers from last season to this season in some of those attacking areas. And we've got it here. Xhaka's 22-23 numbers to his 21-22. You can see he's got more goals per game. He's got more assists per game. He's got 3 more touches in the attacking third per game. He's got more shots per game, a higher expected assist total, more key passes per game, and more shot creating actions. Now the key passes and shot creating actions were quite good last season anyway, not too much in it, but they are still improved. He's having more of an impact in the final third. Look at his goal against Southampton. Look at his goal against, PSV in the Europa League, getting into the penalty area against Leicester as well and putting it away. He's having a lot of fun in this area, Granit Xhaka, and it's absolutely fantastic to see. So when we start to sort of wrap it all up and consider everything, kind of how it started, what we expected we were getting. Because I think when I was talking earlier about how he's played as more of a lone 6 or played with kind of midfielders around, he's been at the base of a midfield 3 or in a double pivot. I saw quite a static midfielder. Now we're seeing a far more dynamic box-to-box midfielder who's playing in lots of areas. I think there's even a quote from Arsene Wenger saying that he saw him as a box-to-box. So what is this improvement down to? Was he always this good? Were his numbers and kind of the performances we've seen this season always in his potential? Was he always a player who could deliver that? But he needed the manager, the players, and the system around him to kind of get the best out of him. Sure, maybe that was always there. But was he always playing at this level before, like we're seeing now? Like some people will argue. No, I don't think so. I don't think he was ever playing like this before. Even if it was in a deeper role, was he playing at a level that was kind of comparable to this? No, not in my opinion. I think you've got to give tremendous credit for the way he's evolved, developed, improved. I think there is a degree of us learning and understanding him in a way we probably didn't before, and that he was playing better than we were giving him credit. I think the last 2 seasons under Arteta, he's largely been good, if not very good for us. But this season is a different level. I really put him forward as our player of the season, and that is a massive turnaround for Granit Xhaka from where I personally saw him, from where I know a lot of people watching watching this channel, who I've talked about, with Arsenal fans that I know, it's a massive change from how he was viewed before in terms of quite how important and quite how effective he is in this Arsenal team. Let me read you this final quote. It comes from the Players' Tribune as well. I want to highlight a couple of things he said in it. So he says, obviously I'm not captain of Arsenal any longer, but I can promise you that I will still act like a captain even without the armband. That is possible. I get a lot of respect from my teammates and our staff, and I'm so thankful for that. I'll always help the young guys and take responsibility for our performances. Arsenal is still in my heart, 100%. My challenge was never to change people's opinions about me, but to help the team. And then after that, if someone did change their mind because of that, then great. I understand we will never be best friends, but I hope we can treat each other with the honesty and respect. I want you to know that whatever I do on the pitch, it comes from the right place. If I'm late in a tackle, it's because I'm fighting for Arsenal. If I lose my temper, it's because I care. Sometimes maybe I care too much. Obviously, you can never predict in future in football, but I do know a few things. After this season, I have 2 years left of my contract. I still love this club. I believe Mikel Arteta is building a great team, and I want to achieve something special here. Let me just pick out a couple of things he said. I will still act like a captain. Absolutely he has. Absolutely he has. I don't think where people might have had a problem with him wearing the armband before, I don't think people do. I think when you look at the documentary, I've certainly come to the conclusion that he's the captain without the armband. Odegaard is terrific in terms of leading his own way, and there's others as well, Kieran Tierney, others that I look at in terms of leaders, Gabriel Jesus, Martinelli and Xhaka certainly lead with their performances. Gabriel puts his heart on the line for everything. But I think Granit Xhaka looks to me like the leader of that team. The huddles, everyone coming together, it feels like they respond to him and the way he leads. And you can't take that from him. And fair play, that quote absolutely stands true today. My challenge was never to change people's opinion about me, but to help the team. And then after that, if someone did change their mind because of that, then great. Look, whether you were trying to change people's minds about you or not, absolutely they are. Absolutely. You had those who backed Granit Xhaka all the way, and then you had those who were unsure, maybe hypercritical about him, but I think everyone is appreciating what he's doing this season, and certainly my opinion has changed. I don't believe this is Granit Xhaka in a purple patch just playing well. I think this is Granit Xhaka playing at a superb level that is legitimately consistent, dependable, and that I think he can maintain for a long, long time and continue to deliver in this position, in this role for Arsenal. I understand that we will never be best friends. Why not? Why can't? I mean, this was said back in about April, I think, but I don't know if he'd stand by that statement today. I think a lot of Arsenal fans, the way they're singing his name, the appreciation now, maybe from his perspective, he can't always forget all that, and that's fine. But I think, and maybe for some Arsenal fans as well, but I think there's a far greater affection for Granit Xhaka now than there probably ever was before, or a greater one than anyone ever thought there could be, maybe including himself. He then says, I believe Mikel is building a great team and I want to achieve something special here. Can't argue with that. I believe Mikel's building a great Arsenal team. I really do believe that. The potential this group have, the way everyone's pulling in the same direction, the way players have come so quickly back from the World Cup to join the boys in Dubai and get back to work. I think that is something special. I think you can see a togetherness. And can he achieve something special as he says he wants to? Why not? We've made such a special start to this season. Yeah, I believe he probably can. And I wouldn't have said that even 3-4 months ago. But football changes things quickly. And do we have to reflect a little bit on the way that we judge players? Do we have to reflect a little bit on our criticism, our evaluation, our opinions? You know, when you see how quickly football can change, do we maybe need to deliver things with just a little bit of a handbrake on and go, listen, while I'm maybe feeling this way, I appreciate there might be another side. Or maybe there's another perspective to this. Who knows? But football does change opinions very, very quickly, doesn't it? All right, guys, we're going to leave it there. What a season Granit Xhaka is having. I can't wait to see more of him this year, and I can't wait to see more of Arsenal. Let me know in the comment section, was Granit Xhaka always this good? In my opinion, to sum up, I think the potential is always there because we're now seeing him in a new role, but I don't think he was playing at this level before. What do you think? Catch you on the next one, guys.
Shop for AFTV merch at shop.aftv.co.uk. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat and Twitch. We've got content for every platform, so check it out.